Hey guys, Miss Rogers here. Today we're going to do a lesson with adding fractions with unlike denominators. I know everyone's favorite topic to do that involves fractions. I know fractions can be scary, but hopefully today with me walking you through how to add fractions with unlike denominators, hopefully we can get you out of your comfort zone and get you to be more familiar and help you get more friendly with fractions, okay? So before we begin, we need to know what a fraction is. So let's do a quick recap or a quick review on what fractions are. Remember, a fraction just is a way to represent or a way for you to show a part of a whole, okay? So you have the whole amount of a part and you're only using a certain part. So if I gave you the example 3/4, okay? Remember, a fraction is part of a whole. Okay, so if I give you the fraction 3/4, you already know my 3 is my numerator and my 4 is my denominator. Okay, you already know that. That's what a fraction is. You have your numerator on top and your denominator on the bottom. A quick way I remember, or a way I used when I was in elementary school to remember what was my numerator and denominator is focusing on the word denominator and down. Okay, so my denominator, which is down, down starts with a D, denominator starts with a D. That's how I remember which one is my denominator. Okay, so your part, because a fraction is part of a whole, your part is going to be on top because you're using a specific part, and your whole is on the bottom because you're not using the whole. Okay, you're only using part of it. Okay, so I'm going to put right here, my 3 is my part, my 4 is my whole. Okay, you're only using part of a whole. Okay, so if I was to use a diagram to show you what this looks like, okay, I'm taking my whole, which is 4. I split it into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm going to shade in 3 parts because I'm only using 3. So I'm going to shade in 3. Okay, so this fraction, or the diagram that represents the fraction, is right here. I used 1, 2, 3 parts of my whole, which is 4. Okay, so that's what a fraction is. Okay, well, today we're going to be working with unlike denominators, and my denominators are going to be 10 and 100. Okay, so I will put that up. Okay, so on my board behind me, let me scoot it over so you all can kind of see, because it's kind of halfway off of the camera. There. Okay, so 2 rules that you need to do, or 2 ways that you add unlike denominators with fractions, is you need to make sure the denominators are alike. And I done told you that our denominator... Can't talk today, guys. Sorry, it's one of those days. We all have those days. Today, I just can't talk. Okay, let's get back to adding fractions. Okay, I told you all that we're going to add fractions with unlike denominators. Okay, and unlike denominators, just like the way it is, okay, or the way the words are, is the denominators are not the same, okay? They're going to be different. They're not alike, okay? So, your first step when you add fractions is to make sure the denominators are the same. In our case, our denominators are going to be 10 and 100, okay? So we need to make sure our denominators are a common denominator or a common whole of 100, okay? When I get to a problem, that will make more sense, okay? Then the second thing, once your denominators are alike, or you have the same denominators, then you add your numerator, so you add your 2 top numbers together. Then you drag your denominator over. Okay, you do not want to add your denominators because you spend all this time making sure your denominators are the same to get an equal whole or to get a common whole. You do not want to add a different whole. Okay? You don't want to get a whole nother hole that you didn't do in your math. Okay? So let's do a couple different examples, and that will make sense. Okay? So if I give you the example 60 over 100, and I want to add 3/10. Okay, the first thing that your brain should be telling you to look at is our denominators. And our denominators are not alike. Okay, they're not the same. So I have one denominator of 100 and one denominator of 10. I need to have a common denominator of one or the other. Okay, so you might be wondering, how do I get them alike? Which one do I mess with to get it to look like the other one? Okay, I'm going to tell you, you want to look at the smaller number. Because if you do something with this 100 right here to try to make it look like a 10, you're going to have to subtract, or not subtract, to divide, and you don't want to divide this. Because if you divide this, then you're going to get a fraction inside of a fraction. Maybe not this. This one right here won't give you a fraction, but most times when you're dealing with a denominator of 100, they will give you a fraction inside of a fraction, and you don't want to do that because then you'll get really confused and then you'll hate fractions even more. So let's look at our smaller number because this is going to be easy to get me to 100. So if I look at my denominator of 10 and I know I need to get to 100, I need to figure out my pattern or my math pattern that I need to realize to get me to 100. Okay? And since we are mathematicians, we should already know that 10 times 10 gives me 100, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply my numerator and my denominator by 10. Okay? I want to do this because then I will get a common denominator of 100. And I want my two denominators to be the same. Okay? A little trick when you're multiplying by 10, okay? When you multiply by 10, you're going to add a 0, okay? So let me write this down and this will make sense. So I'm going to keep my first fraction the same because I want to keep the denominator of 100. So this is going to equal 60 over 100. I'm going to add the second fraction. 3 times 10 is 30, okay? So the pattern, when you multiply by 10, you're adding a 0, okay? So if you look here, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 0 is 0. So I'm just adding a 0. So look at your first number and just add a 0 at that. So 10 times 10 is 100. I'm keeping my 10, my base of 10, and just adding that 0. Okay, so now my new problem, after I multiplied the second fraction by 10 to get me the common denominator of 100, I have 60 hundredths plus 30 hundredths. Okay, now my denominators are the same. Now I can add. Okay, 60 plus 30 is 90. Drag my denominators over because you do not want to add them because I spent all this time making sure my denominators are the same or alike. I don't want to add another type of hole in there to make it more complicated, okay? So my answer would be 90 hundredths, okay? Let's look at another example. All right, if I gave you 17 hundredths, now I want you to add 6/10. Okay, now look at this. Okay, so I have 17 hundredths and I'm going to add 6/10. Okay, this one will give you a decimal now or a fraction inside of a fraction. If I was to look at my hundredths over here, my fraction that has hundredths, if I was to divide by 10, I would get a decimal up here. Okay, and you do not want a decimal inside of a fraction because that's a fraction inside of a fraction and you'll get more confused. So your easy case to do is to multiply the second fraction by 10 with the denominator and the numerator. Okay, so if I look here, I'm going to leave this fraction the same because I want my denominators to be hundredths. Okay, so 17 hundredths. I'm going to add the second problem. 6 times 10, I keep my 6, add my 0, 60, 6 times 10 is 60. Then I'm going to keep 100 because 10 times 10 is 100, or put your 10 and a 0 at the end. 17 plus 60 is 77. Carry or drag my hundredths across. So my answer is 77 hundredths. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, so let's look at 33 hundredths, and I want to add 2 tenths. Okay, so a light bulb should be going off in your head that my denominators are not the same. I need the denominators to be like denominators of 100. Okay, so I'm going to multiply the second fraction by 10. Okay, I'm going to keep the first fraction the same because it has the same, or the common denominator of 100 that I want. Okay, so 33 hundredths. 2 times 10 is 20. 10 times 10 is 100. 33 plus 20 is 53 hundredths, because I need to add a 0 right there. I'm going to drag my denominators over. Okay? Remember, when you have like denominators, you do not want to add your denominators, because when you look at your numerators, you add your numerators across. You do not want to add your denominators across because you spent all this time getting your denominators to be the same. Okay? So if I did all my math and I ended up with denominators of 23 hundredths and, I don't know, 30 hundredths. Okay, so 23 plus 30 is 50. Oh. Well, I guess that's going to be kind of the same what we just did. 53 hundredths. Or, shoot. Okay, now you get to the denominator and you want to say, oh, 100 plus 100 is 200. That is not the answer because you spend all this time getting to make sure your denominators are like to be 100, that, oh, now over here you have a whole different type of whole that you're dealing with. You do not want to do that. So instead of it being 200, you just want to drag your denominator over, which would be 100. So the answer to this problem would be 53 hundredths. Okay? I promise, guys, as long as I've been doing fractions, fractions are not that complicated. I know we all fear fractions because they can be difficult, and I'm not lying, they can be difficult. Sometimes fractions still trick me up, okay? But I promise the more you get used to fractions and the more you deal with fractions, the more comfortable you get, the more you enjoy fractions. You might not enjoy fractions like I do, but as often as I deal with fractions in the classroom, teaching kids and all, I'm used to fractions. Okay, so I hope this video helped you guys on how to add fractions with unlike denominators. Until next time, have a good day.